In this video, we'll be taking a look at converting a complex sculpted mesh from a program like ZBrush into SolidWorks using Power Surfacing RE. We start by importing a reference mesh. Now we confirm our dimensions and continue with the import. We can also adjust these dimensions if necessary. Once the import is complete, we're left with this model. Now we use the quad wrap to wrap a layer of polygons around the model. I use 0.4% to capture a little bit more detail. Even at 0.4%, it still missed a lot of the finer curves and sharp edges that were on the reference mesh. We can use isolate open edges to check the quad wrap and see if any holes were left in the model. That is not the case here, so we can continue with our conversion. To pick up the smaller details, we could go with the finer quad wrap, but a far more efficient way of doing this is using shrink wrap. The shrink wrap forces our layer of polygons to follow the curvature of the reference geometry. At level 3, we can now see a lot of those smaller details that we missed initially. We can now use isolate self-intersections to see if there's any self-intersecting geometry that's going to cause us issues with the conversion. There aren't any self-intersections, so we can go ahead and continue with the conversion. Now we have a valid solid with all of the details from the original ZBrush mesh that we imported. Thanks for watching. For additional information, visit our website at npowersoftware.com. In this video, we'll be taking a look at a few ways you can convert a ZBrush model into SolidWorks using Power Surfacing RE. There are 3 different ways to do this, and each will give you a different number of surfaces as a result. The first way is just the standard conversion of importing, quad wrapping, shrink wrapping, and then converting into SolidWorks. This is perhaps the simplest way, but also results in the largest number of surfaces as the output. The other 2 methods both involve using the remesher tool in ZBrush. Once we open ZBrush and have our model up, we start by duplicating it. We then go to the Geometry tab and select the remesher tool. I use the default settings for remesher, and it output these polygons. I now use the divide command. For this next method, I went with the subdivision level of 4, which outputs a similar number of polygons to the original. This allows me to capture the most amount of detail when we go to the next step in SolidWorks. Now use the projectile tool to capture all the detail on the original model. I set the distance to 0.5 here. Now we can export the model and import it into SolidWorks. We import the model as an OBJ sub D. This brings it straight into Power Surfacing. I select meters because the values are quite small. Here we see that there were a large number of polygons from the subdivisions in ZBrush. We can directly convert this into SolidWorks now. There are noticeably fewer surfaces here than there were with our traditional conversion. For this last method, I went back into ZBrush and changed the subdivision levels down to 2. You again import a ZBrush file as an OBJ sub D. In the Power Surfacing options, I reduce the sub D pushback so that I don't see the back-facing edges. Now I open our original ZBrush file as a reference mesh. I then select all the vertices and add references. Now I do the shrink wrap to shrink our sub D down to the reference mesh. We want to turn optimization off to prevent additional surfaces from being created. From here we can convert into SolidWorks. The benefit of using these methods is that it still exports a high quality model, but also outputs a lower number of surfaces than a standard conversion. We see the model using the final method. Here's just using the remesher and the conversion. And here's the original method we tried. Thanks for watching. For additional information, visit our website at npowersoftware.com.